Hello. I hope everyone can hear me today. We're live again. If you missed that last week, we are back at it. And as per usual with the live, you'll just have to let me know if sound is not coming through or if something's competing with me or anything like that. Just to talk to you a bit about what has transpired since my last live stream. We have reached 36 subscribers, which puts me over the 35 limit that I'd set. Not like upper limit, but like goal, which means I gotta buy clogs for Felix. If you weren't a part of that chat, hello Kataru, thank you. If you weren't a part of that stream, that was a live stream, it was a lit game. I think it was the romance one where we started talking about clogs. Anyways, I did send Felix a text that said, what's your shoe size? And he hasn't responded yet because I don't know if he wants clogs. If you've never been here before, well, you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. We basically just read some stories here, some fairy tales, and then we call it a night. So it's Fireside Fairy Tales. And if you don't know, this is the Varietal. Varietal, myself and others are writers in Vancouver. We have a website, varietal-literature.ca. You can click on the link. Dana's poems are up right now. She read them last Thursday. It was a very popular video. I encourage you to go and check it out. Yeah. So today we're going to read from Alexander Pushkin. He is a Russian that I had never personally heard of, but I think that might speak more to my lack of culture. Because when I sort of looked into him, he seems to be something like the Russian version of Shakespeare, in that he had a major impact on the Russian language and how it was written. So, we're going to read a tale from him today called The Tale of the Golden Cockerel. Gotta get used to the mirror. There we are. And these are a little more grown up, but I think maybe that's what we would expect from a Russian fairy tale. They tend to be a little more, Russia tends to be a little more straightforward. So I won't spend any more time on it. And also, I will say though, thank you for coming by, guys. This weird little corner of the internet I have. So this is called The Tale of the Golden Cockerel. Sometime long, long ago, in a kingdom you wouldn't know, lived Tsar Dadon the Glorious, who began his reign in a notorious way by invading his neighbors, destroying their homes and their labors. Later, though nearing old age, his life entered a new phase. The Tsar wanted peace, but now his enemies unleashed barrages of their own attacks. The Tsar was hardly able to relax before he needed to protect his borders from the armies and marauders. A fine war machine he did preserve, and his generals would serve him well, but now he would need an astute strategy to succeed. You see, if his army guarded the south, the foe took an eastern route. Defend that flank, and the next guest would emerge from the sea, never a rest. In private, the Tsar would weep, cutting into his dignity and his sleep. In such fear, it's hardly a life, so he turned to another for advice. He summoned an old soothsayer, eunuch, an astrologer, and sent a courier to get the man. Soon the eunuch arrived, and with great Elaine, lifted from a sack a cockerel of gold. To the Tsar, this is what he told. On a high spire place this bird, so he can be seen and heard. There, my cockerel, golden from head to tail, will protect the city without fail. If things are quiet for miles around, the rooster will sit quietly, not a sound. But if you unwelcome strangers do appear, if the horror of war approaches near, then the bird will size up the enemy force and map out its expected course. Boldly the rooster will cry out, flutter its wings, stiffen its red comb, eyes fixed on the danger away from home. The Tsar, elated, bid the sage farewell, promising to fulfill any desire the man might have. The sage was quiet, call it savvy, as he would wait for events to unfold while dreaming of fortunes untold. And so the cockerel from his high perch for the enemy would diligently search. The minute he sensed danger, like a trustworthy farm rooster at daybreak, he would come to life. Turning in that direction, well confirming his suspicions, he'd cry, "Kira-coo-coo! Careful, they are coming for you." Soon the enemies day and night lost their will to fight. Their forces, regardless of number, by dawn, were ripped asunder. 2 years passed in peace, and the cockerel stood at ease. Then the Tsar was awakened from his sleep by loud voices and shuffling feet. "Sir, father of our nation," began a general's exclamation. "Sir, wake up, there's trouble." "What is it, people?" the Tsar said, breaking a yawn. "What's the matter? What's wrong?" "Sir, the bird has a threat in focus. He's giving us notice that evil winds are blowing near. People on edge, our fate's unclear." The Tsar looked at the agitated bird and saw it was pointed eastward. "Hurry, no time to waste. To your horses make haste." The Tsar sent an army to the east. His oldest son he chose to lead. The cockerel soon stood quietly, and Dayton waited patiently in the solemn city. Soon came day 8, still no news on the army's fate. If a savage battle occurred, would he have heard? Then the cockerel cried out again, and the Tsar rounded up more men. He sent his other son, he had but 2, to investigate and perhaps rescue his first brave unit. The cockerel quieted again, and time crawled in the city for the next 8 days. People worried, their thoughts strayed. Then the rooster cried out again. The Tsar ordered a 3rd set of men, and led it himself to the east, uncertain if he could help in the least. Traveling day and night, his army tired quickly. Neither a fight, nor camps, nor battlefields, nor burial mounds in hills did Dayton and his troops encounter. What's going on? He wondered. Now it was the 8th day ahead, and into the hills the army was led. Between 2 majestic hills the verdant meadow seemed unduly still. Further down a silk tent was seen, and in a tight ravine lay the Tsar's first 2 armies perished. To the tent Dayton rushed, and witnessed a sight he feared. At the door his 2 sons dear, without their helmets or armor, lay motionless, not a stir. Each had driven a lethal blade into the other. Their horses in the glade meanwhile roamed on the trampled grass. Over blood-stained sward they'd passed. The Tsar wailed, "Oh, the horror! My sons, both my warriors, caught in a trap. Oh, the misery! Death comes soon unto me." Everyone grieved behind the Tsar. Hills and valleys near and far, it seemed, with pent-up sorrow moaned as well. Suddenly the tent opened, and a stunning beauty was seen. Her name was Shamaka, the queen. Her radiance, like the new day's sun, quietly wrapped itself around Dayton. Like a night bird's song is stifled by sunrise, the Tsar was speechless, peering into her eyes. It was here he forgot at once the tragic death of his 2 sons. She led the Tsar inside the tent of silk, her skin's sweet scent, her bewitching smile, her figure's allure, her were heaven sent. The Tsar was sure. At the table she gave him a seat, the finest food she served to eat. On a brocade bed he rested, captured by her beauty, arrested by her charm. For a week exactly he was hers completely, seemingly trapped under the maiden's spell, and he feasted like a king as well. Eventually, though, he needed to go back to his kingdom, so with the army intact they returned to their more familiar haven, together with the lovely young maiden. Truths and falsehoods were rife as the city before them sprang to life. In their carriages, Daedon and the queen were followed by the masses. What a scene! Daedon greeted all, even tossed a few coins to the crowd. Then he noticed a man with a strange hat on. It was the eunuch. "Welcome, Tsar Daedon," to his majesty the sage bellowed. "Ah, greetings, my dear fellow," the Tsar replied. "What do you say? Can I throw a little your way?" "Yes, sir," replied the wise men. "Indeed, it is time to settle the best we can. Remember you said you'd acquire and grant me anything I desire? Well, there is something I've seen. I want her, the Shamaka Queen." The Tsar was shocked. "Surely you jest," he mocked. "Has the devil gotten to you? How could such thoughts accrue in your head? I gave you my word, of course, but such rubbish I've never heard. Your requests need to be within reason. And why the maiden? Is this some kind of test? From you I'd take almost any request. Take money or the title of a noble. Take a horse from the royal stable. Take half my empire. My dear Tsar, all I desire is the maiden I've seen, the Shamaka Queen." The Tsar spat in disgust. "Such evil, this is hardly fitting. Enough, you won't receive a thing, sinner, except for perhaps suffering. Be off, take the old goat away. You're lucky you're still alive today." The old man started to argue, but such acts you won't do with the Tsar, who hit him with his staff across the lips, and the eunuch fell flat. He died on the spot before a whole city shuddering, but the beauty seemed to giggle at the whole affair. For the sage's fate, she didn't care. The Tsar, though shaken, looked lovingly at the maiden. They began to head towards town when from above they heard a faint sound. The whole capital looked on as the Cockerel headed down toward Daedon. Like a shot he flew down, landing on the Tsar's crown. He fluttered wildly, pecking into his head, and flew off. It can be said that from the carriage the Tsar fell. Exactly what killed him, no one could tell. Mysteriously, the queen disappeared. It's as if she were never there. The end. I didn't say this on the outside, but he's also a poet. I kind of hinted that with mentioning that he's sort of the Russian Shakespeare. Obviously, I don't know exactly what it sounds like in original Russian, but this is a very good translation, and if you'd like to read it yourself, it's at fairytales.biz. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to use Project Gutenberg this time. Hopefully that doesn't create problems. That was The Tale of the Golden Cockerel by Alexander Pushkin. Chat, do you want to hear another Alexander Pushkin tale, or do you feel like you've had enough of him tonight? While I wait for you to catch up and answer, find out where chat's at with another tale, I'll just mention here that we put out videos last week. They were pre-recorded, they weren't live, but I did a shorter video. It's only 15 minutes of me reading Rapunzel, and I think it was a very gorgeous version. I really liked the version of it. And we also did a video that's proven very popular, which was Dana Mahana reading her poetry about climate anxiety. And then we discussed it a bit, myself and Spencer. Discussed it with Dana. I think it's a very, very cool little booklet that she's put together of poems. And if you go and click on that video, you can actually purchase it direct from her. All money goes to the artist. And I encourage you to do that. She's got a very cool special edition. We have a vote from chat that says yes please from Kotaru. Okay. Let me just line this up for you. This will be the last one tonight. We're not going quite as long as usual. This is also an Alexander Pushkin tale. It's the tale of the Tsar Saltan. Now, if you're wondering why is it all about Tsars, apparently he wasn't a very, very big fan of Tsars, according to his history. He was politically active in a time that they were all-powerful, which led to him getting kicked out of his home and excommunicated for most of his life. So I think we can definitely pick that up in the tales. So this is the story of the tale of Tsar Saltan. Qatar says, haha, 100% of the votes agree with me. Yes, it's a quieter night tonight. Also, while I'm reading this, if there's something you think I should read or sort of a different direction you want me to take for a bit, guys, let me know in the chat. I've been trying to find a good source for mythology. The problem is it's all academic. It's not really stories, even though they are stories. Or it's copyrighted material, so I can't read it. So this is the tale of Tsar Saltan. Long ago, in a faraway kingdom, 3 sisters were outside in the courtyard talking, imagining what they would do if they were married to Tsar Saltan. One said that she would prepare a great feast for the entire world. The next said that she would weave linen for the entire world. The third said that she would give the Tsar an heir handsome and brave beyond compare. It so happened that the Tsar, pardon me, who was just outside the fence, overheard the conversation. When he heard the words of the last maiden, he fell in love and asked her to be his wife. They were married the very same night and conceived a son soon after. The other sisters were given jobs as a cook and a weaver. A few months later, the Tsar went to war and had to part with his beloved wife. While he was at war, his wife, the queen, gave birth to his son. A rider was sent to the Tsar to convey the good news. However, the 2 sisters and a friend named Barbarica were so jealous of their sister's luck that they kidnapped the rider and replaced him with their own messenger, who carried a note to the Tsar which read, "Your wife, the queen, has borne neither a son nor daughter, neither a mouse nor a frog, but had given birth to an unknown little creature." When he read this message, the Tsar was mortified and sent a letter back telling his wife to wait for his return before taking any action. The scheming sisters met the rider on the way back, got him drunk, and replaced the Tsar's actual letter with a fake one that ordered the queen and her baby to be put into a barrel and thrown into the sea. Of course, there was no way to disobey an order from the Tsar, so the palace guards put the queen and her son into the barrel and rolled into the water. As the queen wept inside the barrel, her son grew stronger, not by the day, but by the minute. He begged the waves to wash them onto dry land. The waves obeyed, and he and his mother found themselves washed ashore on a desert island. By now they were quite hungry, so the son made himself a bow and arrow, using small branches from a tree, and went hunting. Near the sea he heard a screech and saw a poor swan struggling against a huge black hawk. Just as the hawk was about to bury its beak in the swan's neck, the youth shot an arrow, killing the hawk, and spilling the bird's blood into the sea. The white swan swam up to the lad, thanked him, and said, "You didn't kill a hawk at all, but a wicked wizard. For saving my life, I will serve you forever." The son returned to his mother and told her of his adventure. Then they both fell asleep soundly, even though they were still hungry and thirsty. The next morning they awoke and saw a wondrous city standing before them, where there had been nothing before. The two marveled at the golden domes of the monasteries and churches behind the city's white walls. "My, look at all the swan has done," the lad thought. The two walked into the city, and throngs of people greeted them and crowned the young man a prince, proclaiming him Prince Gavidden. Oh. GS says Golden Cockerel was excellent. The Cockerel was obviously social media. I think I know who that is. One day, a merchant ship was sailing near the island when its sailors caught a glimpse of the amazing walled city. The city's cannons signaled the ship to come ashore. The Prince Gavidden. Sorry, it's not my native tongue. I did look up how to pronounce it. Welcomed them and offered them food and drink. He asked what they had for sale and where they were going. "Our trade is in furs," they said, "and we are headed past the island of Buyan to the kingdom of Tsar Saltan." Gavidden asked the merchant sailors to convey his respects to the Tsar, even though his mother had earlier told him about the note that led to their expulsion from the Tsar's kingdom. Still, Prince Gavidden thought the best of people and could never quite believe that his father could do such a thing. As the merchant sailors were preparing to leave the island, the prince became sad when thinking about his father. "What is wrong? Why are you so gloomy?" the swan said. "I so wish to see my father, the Tsar," Gavidden replied. Then, with a splash of water, the swan turned the prince into a small gnat so that he could hide himself in a crack of the mast of the ship en route to see the Tsar. When the ship arrived at the Tsar Saltan's kingdom, the Tsar greeted the merchant sailors and asked them to tell of the lands they had seen. The sailors told the Tsar about the island and the walled city and spoke of the hospitable Prince Gavidden. The Tsar did not know this Prince Gavidden was his son, but expressed a wish to see this beautiful city anyway. The two sisters and the old Barbarica did not want to let him go, however, and acted as if there was nothing to marvel at in the sailor's tale. "What is really amazing," they said, "is a squirrel that sits under a fir tree, cracking golden nuts containing kernels of pure emerald and singing a song. That's something which is truly extraordinary." Hearing this, the gnat, really Prince Gavidden, got angry and stung the old woman's right eye. After he flew back to the island, Gavidden told the swan the story he heard about the remarkable squirrel. Then the prince walked into his courtyard, and lo and behold, there was the singing squirrel sitting under a fir tree, cracking golden nuts. The prince rejoiced at this and ordered that a crystal house be built for the little animal. He placed a guard there to stand watch and ordered a scribe to record every shell. Profit for the prince, honor for the squirrel. Honor for the squirrel is not a thing anybody expects to read. Sometime later, a second ship came to the island en route to the Tsar, and the prince again told the swan that he wished to see his father again. This time the swan turned the prince into a fly so that he could hide in a crack of the ship. After the vessel arrived in the kingdom, the sailors told Tsar Saltan about the wondrous squirrel they had seen. Saltan again wanted to visit this fabled city, but was talked out of it when the two sisters and Barbarica ridiculed the sailor's story and spoke themselves of a greater wonder, of 33 handsome young knights led by old Chernamore, rising out of the raging sea. The fly, Gvidin, became quite angry with the woman and stung Barbarika's left eye before flying back to the island. Once home again, he told the swan about old Chernamore and the 33 knights, and lamented that he had never seen such a wonder. "These knights are from great waters that I know," the swan said. "Don't be sad, for these knights are my brothers, and they will come to you." Later the prince went back and climbed a tower of his palace and gazed at the sea. Suddenly a giant wave rose high and deep onto the shore, and when it receded, the 33 knights in armor, led by old Chernamore, emerged, ready to serve Prince Gvidin. They promised that they would come out of the sea each day to protect the city. A few months later, a third ship came to the island. In his customary fashion, the prince again made the sailors feel welcome, and told them to send his respects to the Tsar. As the sailors prepared themselves for their journey, the prince told the swan that he still couldn't get his father out of his mind and wished to see him again. This time, the swan turned the prince into a bumblebee. I think that will make one of our viewers happy. The ship arrived in the kingdom, and the sailors told Tsar Saltan about the wondrous city they had seen, and how every day 33 knights and old Chernamore would emerge from the sea to protect the island. The Tsar marveled at this and wanted to see this extraordinary land, but once again was talked out of it by the two sisters and old Barbarika. They belittled the sailor's tale and said that it was really amazing. What really was amazing was that beyond the seas lived a princess so stunning that you couldn't take your eyes off her. Pardon me. The light of day pales against her beauty. The darkness of night is lit up by it. When she speaks, it is like the murmur of a tranquil brook. Now that's a marvel, they said. Gvidin, the bumblebee, got angry with the woman once more and stung Barbarika on her nose. They tried to catch him, but to no avail. He was safely on his journey back home. After his arrival there, Gvidin strolled out to the seashore until he was met by the white swan. "Why so gloomy this time?" the swan asked. Gvidin said that he was sad because he did not have a wife. He related the tale he had heard of the beautiful princess whose beauty lit up the darkness, whose words flowed like a murmuring brook. The swan was silent for a while, then said that there was such a princess. "But a wife," the swan continued, "is no glove one can simply cast from one's hand." Gvidin said he understood, but that he was prepared to walk the rest of his life and to all corners of the world to search for the wondrous princess. At this the swan sighed and said, "There's no need to travel. There's no need to tire. The woman that you desire is now yours to spy. The princess is I." With this she flapped her wings and turned into the beautiful woman that the prince had heard about. The two passionately embraced and kissed, and Gvidin took her to meet his mother. The prince and the beautiful maiden were married that very same evening. A short time later, another ship came to the island. As usual, Prince Gvidin welcomed the sailors, and as they were leaving, he asked the sailors to send his greetings to the Tsar, and to extend an invitation to him to visit. Being happy with his new bride, Gvidin decided not to leave the island this time. When the ship arrived at the kingdom of Tsar Saltan, the sailors again told the Tsar of the fantastic island they had seen, of the singing squirrel cracking the golden nuts, of the 33 armored knights rising out of the sea, and of the lovely princess whose beauty was beyond compare. This time the Tsar would not listen to the snide remarks of the sisters and Barbarika. He called his fleet and set sail for the island immediately. When he reached the island, Prince Gvidin was there to meet the Tsar. Saying nothing, Gavidin led him, along with his 2 sisters-in-law and Barbarica, to the palace. Along the way, the Tsar saw everything that he had heard so much about. There at the gates were the 33 knights and old Chernamor standing guard. There in the courtyard was the remarkable squirrel singing a song and gnawing on a golden nut. There in the garden was the beautiful princess, Gavidin's wife. And then the Tsar saw something unexpected. There, standing next to the princess, was Gavidin's mother, the Tsar's long-lost wife. The Tsar recognized her immediately. With tears streaming down his cheeks, he rushed to embrace her, and years of heartache were now forgotten. He then realized that Prince Gavidin was his son, and the two threw their arms around each other as well. A merry feast was held. The 2 sisters and Barbarica hid in shame, but eventually they were found. They burst into tears, confessed everything, but the Tsar was so happy that he let them all go. The Tsar and the Queen and Prince Gavidin and the princess lived the rest of their days in happiness. The end. Guitar says, "This is so typical. There is a hot lady somewhere. I must have her." You do realize that you're going to have to commit, right? Sure, she's hot, right? It is very typical. They always get married very quick. They make extremely rash decisions on beauty alone. And everyone's super fine with that, too. I still particularly like, I think it was Sleeping Beauty in one of our other streams, where Sleeping Beauty just wakes up. Some guy's like, "I stole you from the dwarves and thought you were dead. Marry me." And then suddenly they were... She was like, "Yeah, let's get married." Katara says, "This doesn't sound very anti-Tsar." I don't know if his fairy tales are where he invested that time. I do know that he may have just been trying to make some money, because apparently he read a poem aloud, something about liberty, and it really upset a lot of people. I would say maybe it's just sort of a different era or whatnot, where any kind of dissent towards the Tsar might have been enough. It's not as satirical as the Edith Nesbit stories, which are also bizarre, though. Well, guys, I don't have another story for you. I'm sorry if you got accustomed to 3. I'm going to try shortening it up a bit. And that's just based on sort of some feedback, where I've noticed a lot of people feel that like 90 minutes is a bit longer than they can attend to. So hopefully the 45-50 minute mark works a bit better for people. You know, you are my viewers. Try to do it in ways that you can feel comfortable, like you're not going to miss things or it's taking too much time. One more time, if you haven't seen Dana Mahana's story last week, she was reading a few of her poems about climate change anxiety that are very cool, and then Spencer and I talk about it. And if you enjoyed this, there is a whole playlist of them on this very YouTube channel. But also, if you enjoyed this, what really helps me is to like and subscribe. I know it's very cliched, but it does genuinely help. And also look out in the future for me buying clogs, because we've hit 36 subscribers, which is super cool, and I really appreciate it. GS says, really well written. Yes, it was. I was surprised how well written his stories were. It was definitely hard. They were hard to find translated at all, or even at all, for a figure as big as he was. It's Alexander Pushkin. I do encourage you. He does a lot of non-children's works too, but obviously I'm not going to dig into that here. Yeah, I won't talk poddle away all your time. That's all we're going to look at tonight. And we will have a stream on Thursday. It's going to be... We're still trying some new things on Thursdays. Trying to see what registers the best, but it's usually some kind of... oh, Katara says congrats. Thank you very much, Katara. It's usually something a little more lively and fun. Which, not that this isn't fun, but lively anyways. Whereas this is a chill stream. Yeah, and if you haven't already, you should definitely buy Dana's little book of poems, which if you find her video on the channel, or you click on the link below, or there's in the description, her poem selection is there, and at the bottom there are some links that will take you there to buy her little chapbook, self-published. Very cool. If you watch the video, she'll talk about some of the options she has on covers, because there's actually a really original one. Anyways, like and subscribe, tell your friends about it, family about it, whoever you think might like it. I really appreciate you folks showing up today, and thank you so much for listening to me. I love you all, and I will see you soon.